Hello, thank you everyone for joining our webinar. We'll get started in a couple of minutes.
What's this webinar about?
Hello everyone, this is Fred Koh, Graphical Networks. Thanks for your time. So today's webinar is about network discovery and automated network maps. So there is a chat button in the Zoom. There's also a Q&A button. Feel free to ask any questions, chat with us during this duration of our 30-minute webinar. So my name is Fred Koh. I'm the Director of Sales for Graphical Networks. Joining me is my colleague Aiden, and Jason Sherman will be presenting our netTerrain network discovery. So a little background about Graphical Networks. We were founded back in 2007. We launched our first software in 2009. So we've been doing this for quite some time. netTerrain itself is a network documentation tool. I want to share my screen. And it's primarily helped to document your networks, whether you're looking to document an automated network map like this, uh, or if it's to document your data center rooms, manage the capacity of your data center racks, space, power, and lastly, we can also be used to document your asset plants. So it's really thinking that you have like three tools in one. One, use our SNMP network discovery to produce network maps like this. It also does have some real-time monitoring as well. So we do have a polar. You can go and discover the temperature of your devices, bandwidth utilization. You can also copy these devices and you can actually place them inside racks. So you can also manage the capacity of your data center rooms. And lastly, is to manage your asset plants. So netTerrain can be installed locally on your own Windows server. It needs IIS, .NET Framework, Microsoft SQL Server, or SQL Server Express. So yes, you can install netTerrain locally, or if you do prefer, we do also offer netTerrain Cloud. So it resides on our AWS host environment. So if you're looking for more of a cloud solution, don't have to deal with the headaches of getting a server, doing the backups, managing that server. So we do offer a netTerrain Cloud option. And before we get started with the demo, I will also share with you our pricing. So our pricing, we start out at 1,000 devices and 2 users. You're looking at about an annual cost of about $5,000 US. That's for a yearly on-premise solution. If you are looking for a cloud, that's slightly more. And that's about $6,000 a year. If you have more than 1,000 devices on your network, we offer them in 500 device increments. If you have more than 100,000 devices, it's unlimited. So we can scale as much as your network scales. Again, we start off up to 1,000 devices. And the other part is the number of users. These would be users that can have access to make edits to the diagrams, make changes. And by default, it comes with 2 users. If you need more than 2 users, we offer them 5, 10, 20, and then unlimited users. And every instance licensed netTerrain also comes with 6 hours of training every year. That's 2 3-hour web sessions, web training classes. And it also includes first year software maintenance. Actually, the annual maintenance is included, which includes new versions of netTerrain as well as customer support. So with that being said, I'll pass this off to Jason. If you do want to test netTerrain out, we do offer a 30-day online trial. Or if you need to download the software, we can offer that as well. So I'll pass it off to Jason. Jason will go through, again, a demo of our netTerrain network discovery and the way it produces automated network maps, the ability to do searches in netTerrain, as well as run reports. And lastly, if we have time, Jason can show how you can easily place those discovered devices inside racks.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'll just say hi over video, then I'll stop that. And we'll get to sharing my screen here. Let me jump over to, let me find it. Here we go. I think this is the one. All right. Here we go. Yeah, as far as when you talk about more automation and things like that with respect to network documentation, um, I mean, one of the obviously a big reason why network documentation projects usually don't stay consistent, persistent, or fail, whatever the case may be. It's usually process and automation, right? You need a process in place to make sure things get updated. Hopefully, you can build automation to make sure things get automated without having to have too many time-intensive manual type processes. So we do give you hopefully some tools that'll help you do that. And those range sort of, vary depending on what you want to do. So if you're doing, whether it's rack and stack diagrams or logical, whatever you want to call the diagrams, you're documenting or diagramming an object. An object, when I say object, something like a switch or a router or a patch panel, those types of things. I mean, you might have subcomponents too, like cards that make up that particular object. But when you look at a drawing like this, where you have all this stuff inside a cabinet, or you have all these cabinets, or you have a hierarchy of things you want to document, buildings, floors, rooms, or even just straight logical, I've got a drawing that I want to show, layer 1, layer 2 type drawing. Or you might have more complicated, where you've got a lot of devices sort of interconnected and you're just trying to build some drawings. One of the first questions, of course, when you get into these types of things is how do we go about documenting that? How do we draw that out? What are our options? I mean, you can of course draw things manually, where you grab objects from a catalog and you drag and drop and start to build out some sort of drawing. Typical, things like Visio and some other tools out there do that, which is all well and good depending on what you're trying to do. But if you're really trying to emulate, sort of mimic your network and document it sort of as built, then hopefully you're going to do that and hopefully come up with some automation. Maybe it's not full automation, but hopefully some way of helping you keep things up to date to a certain extent. So, and the way we do that, we have some different ways of doing that. Anything from import, like Excel. I'm not going to get into the details of some of these things because I really want to focus more on discovery today. But certainly something like Excel, you can build out a whole network documentation project with Excel alone. You could use something like KMZ or Arc, where we pull data from Arc. But if you really want to get into more, I want to discover things. I want to discover my network devices, switches, routers, things that are discoverable from our standpoint, using something like SNMP. Then we have we call a connector that allows you to do that. And you can set that up through netTerrain. We also have this standalone app called the collector, which can run on a Windows machine and also do something similar. And then there's something called a poller, which helps to poll and grab data and push data sort of around, so to speak. So, but getting back to the question at hand, how do I go out and sort of automate some of my documentation, or at least getting some information that might be out there already to help me create some documentation? So one of the ways we do that is SNMP. You can create a connector. You can create a new connector. You can choose from the list and get data. So from SNMP. And what is that going to give me? Well, in the case of something like SNMP collector, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar, you put in an IP address or a range of IP addresses. These are all standalone IPs, but you can put in ranges. I do this just because we connect to our lab and we do some testing and stuff too. So it's nice to have sort of a single entity that I'm discovering against versus a large range. But you can do both. And of course, you'd put in your community string information and your version go out and you can hit up those devices, hopefully discover those devices. And on the right hand side of my screen, there's also things that will go on and basically try and walk. So, for instance, services to discover. So, LLDP and LLDP and CDP, and there's a whole bunch of other things that are kind of listed here that we might want to go out and do a discovery against. So, let me clear all my drawings and just go back to here. But other things like connectivity, is it layer 2 and layer 3 that I'm getting? Is it just layer 2? And so on and so forth. So, if you want to remove duplicated connections, or you want to go do a seed discovery. So if it's a router, you can have it sort of crawl through the IPs that it finds to help speed up the process. And there's proxy and MIS and so on. So these are just some of the features of your discovery that you're going to go out and do. But you can set this up and you can just press the button and go do a discovery. You can do a one-time discovery. You can go out and set up a schedule if you want as well. So you could say, I want to schedule this discovery. Let me just check and see if there's any questions. If there are questions, just throw them in the chat. But you can go in and set up a schedule. So discovery schedule and what we call polling schedule. Discovery would be, hey, I want to run the gambit of my SNMP ranges and go out and see if there's anything new to pick up or any update of data and so on that I want to capture. So that would be around discovery. And then there's referred to as polling, where you're going to go out and do poll very specific values on a regular basis. Normally you're looking at status. Okay, is this thing still responding? So you have a status check option in here. And then field monitoring. Okay, I want to capture temperature or power or very specific OIDs about an object, and I want to grab that and gather that data over time. So you have some flexibility, and of course, how often you want to do that. 1 minute's, you can do 1 minute, but every minute it's going to go around and basically poll every device in all those fields. So you may expand that a little bit. Maybe it's every 3 minutes or whatever makes sense in the number of objects and polling time, because everything takes some sort of time. But you can configure both of these separately. You can, of course, disable them too, but you can have them run at a certain time, like the discovery. Polling's typically you kick off and it just runs, and you can choose which connectors you assign things like polling and discovery to as well. So, but if we go back to our page, what does this do for us? Well, technically, it'll go out and do a discovery, and it usually puts them into buckets. So in my case, some of the objects go into this IP range that I have, or ranges that I might have, and it finds an object and discovers it, and then it basically creates it, and it ends up in this sort of area, this bucket. But what I typically do in my case is anything I've discovered, I usually bring it back into this diagram. You don't have to do this. It depends on how you want to lay your diagrams out, because you may want to have a diagram like this where it's a discovery diagram, but you may also have another drawing where you're building a hierarchy, buildings, floors, rooms, and things like that. So in my case, a lot of these devices I take and I kind of bring them into one drawing because I like to see them all in here. I mean, if you're talking about a network with thousands of things, you're not going to put them in one drawing. You're going to break them out in some form or fashion, but you can choose what you want to do. There's no like you have to do it this way kind of thing. It's really up to you. But in my case, I also have some rack elevations that I'm using, and I'll show you kind of how you can mix sort of your rack Ls and your sort of logical discovered drawings. So in this case, you've done a discovery, you've got devices that are discovered, you have a whole bunch of objects and they're connected together. And you can see some of the links and link types like the ARP and bridge and CDP and LLDP. And some of these things you can choose to turn off or turn on, depending on what you want to see in your diagrams, right? So, but when you do a discovery, you get an object that's been discovered. And then again, you can leave it in a drawing like this, or you can choose to take an object and move it into another diagram. So for instance, I may want to move this into a physical cabinet. So I'd have it in sort of two places, right? I have it in my logical discovered stuff, and then I may want to put it in like a cabinet. Typically, I'm not going to do a copy. I do what's called an alias. And what that allows me to do is have this thing live in two places. So this device lives in this cabinet, but it also ultimately lives in that original drawing where I place the primary object, right? So inside here, it now lives here. It's got a little triangle that tells me this is the primary object. And then we have aliased objects, which would be in the cabinet elevation view. So that's just a way that you could do a discovery, but also build out a hierarchy of where these things are physically located. So you get a little bit of both worlds here, right? You get the logical and the physical side of the house. So when you do a discovery, you can pull different sort of data points. So on the left-hand side of my screen here, let me go grab the pencil again. There it is. So I've got like internal temperature and external temperature and a dew point, right? These are SNMP values, OIDs that I'm pulling specifically for this device type. So I'm saying, you know what, I not only want to discover the device, but I'd like to get some data out of the device as far as certain details. You're going to get some basic stuff like object ID, description, your contact, your uptime, your sys location. That's sort of the built-in standard stuff. And then you might want to add on to that and be like, oh, there's an OID that I can capture data from that's going to give me the internal temperature or the external temperature and those types of things. So you can set that up too. And that's relatively easy to set up. I mean, you'd have to know the OID, of course, but if we go to fields for this particular object type, we give you a placeholder where all you have to do is go in here and you create your field. And then if I go over to the right, I can add the object ID that represents that field and the data that I want to capture. I can make it pollable and I can put in units like Fahrenheit or percent, and then min and max values and some other things like divisors and so on. But if we go back, what happens is you got this set up, you configure it, it goes on to discovery, it does its polling, and then you're starting to see that data on the left-hand side where you see, oh, the temperature internal is 85 and external 77, and the dew point is this, which is a value, a point in time where I'm getting a value, a piece of data, which is great. But, one step beyond that is being able to actually see that data over time and see if there's a trend happening, right? Because you want to know if the temperature's starting to slowly increase, is it getting to the point where you think it's going to exceed some threshold where things are going to get a little too hot? So that's where you can bring up a chart and sort of look at that data over time. So this is my sort of 1 minute increment happening here up to 5 minutes. And it's showing me what the last data value was. So I can see it's 85.7. And then we've got at the top, we've got hourly and daily and weekly and monthly as well. So if I click on hourly, we can see basically what it's doing over time from an hourly perspective. So I can start to see this trend and track over time, right? And then daily or monthly or, up to a year basically of data. So, and you can kind of see how it's, tracking in my case. I got some, sometimes it's, pretty chill. And then sometimes it's a little bit hotter on certain days, but it's not sort of trending way up. Am I going to hit 100 degrees or something like that? So that's good. It's nice to be able to see that. And of course, there's other data points or values you might want to get. Things like power, what's the voltage load over time for my PDU, right? You want to see and track and trend that over time. You can do that too. So it's not really there's not really a limitation from what you're going to track or monitor or grab data from. It's really about the object. Is it SNMP enabled? Is there an OID for the value you want to capture? Can you get to it through your community strings and so on and so forth? So I think with a combination of, discovery and tracking data over time and being able to, document this either in a hierarchy or flat diagrams or both, logical, physical, you can get a nice perspective of your network, but also hopefully minimize the amount of labor you have to put in to give you at least some documentation that's going to be helpful in your day-to-day operations. Of course, you could further enhance this by putting in your patch panels and other things, and the true physical connectivity, port to port, fiber cable strands, and all those things. But if we're just talking, discovery, I want to get something going with my documentation, and for a lot of folks, and that might be enough of the requirement that I have, which is great. So hopefully it'll help with that. But with that said, if you guys have questions, please reach out to sales, Fred, Aiden. We talked about the pricing. I'll mention again, pricing is based on sort of the number of users, we'll call editor users, but also the objects that you bring into NetTerrain. And I should clarify what an object is before we go. Objects, like in the case of Discovery, are going to be things like your switch, your router, whatever sort of IP thing that you've discovered. Typically, that's what you're going to call an object. The links we don't count from a licensing perspective, and subcomponents, like if you've discovered a device and it's got ports, we don't care about the ports, and we don't care about the cards. It's really typically the base chassis. Now, objects can also be things that build hierarchy, your buildings, your floors, your rooms, etc. But all those things you control. So you decide what you really want to bring in your documentation, so you can, of course, manage your license counts effectively. It's not just, licensed around a whole cabinet. You might only have one thing in the cabinet. It's really about what you want to bring into your diagrams and document, and you pay for what you use there. So, and Fred mentioned the price. We start around 1,000 objects. So if you want some pricing information sent to you, we can certainly do that too. With that said, I'll let you guys go. Hope you have a great holidays coming up. And that's it. Fred, anything else? Words of wisdom?
No, thank you everyone for your time. Under the webinar chat, I did put down Aiden's email address. So if this does seem like it could work for you to go on Discovery Network and see automated network map, and also create network closets and data center room diagrams, feel free to reach out to Aiden. Do you want to thank you for your time? We'll give you 5 minutes back. Thanks everyone for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining, guys.
Thanks,
I'll try
everybody.
to send everyone a recording
Awesome.
of this session as well.
Great. Thanks, Aiden. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.